Anneliese, great to speak to you. Is it difficult to know what to criticise here when you asked for a statement that was all around jobs, 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 and at a rate of £1 billion a minute, Rishi Sunak really focused on jobs?
Well, there were a number of, for what Labour called were proposed by the Chancellor yesterday. In particular, we've said repeatedly that there needs to be a scheme for... Oh, sorry, I think we had some internet issues there. I hope they're resolved now. So I was just saying that we have called repeatedly for the Chancellor to look at a scheme to support young unemployed people. We've had schemes that have worked before in the UK, for example, the Future Jobs Fund under Labour government, schemes run by the Welsh Labour government. Seems like the government has now finally listened to those calls. We will have a so-called Kickstarter scheme. Now, we need to make sure that scheme involves genuinely new opportunities for young people, that it's not just pushing other workers out, that it's genuinely additional. But to the extent that it's put into place, of course, we support that. But, there was one big problem with what the Chancellor announced. He's sticking to his one-size-fits-all approach to sectoral issues that just it's not sensible. We're seeing our job retention scheme and our self-employed support schemes being removed at the same rate across the whole economy. But this is a sectorally based crisis.
Okay.
So he does need to shift from that approach.
Which sectors would you support then, Anneliese, if you were in his shoes? Would you do more for aviation, for example?
Well, when it comes to aviation, we've said to the Chancellor and indeed to the Transport Secretary that they need to have a strategy. What's happening now is different airlines competing against each other, often using government support, actually, effectively to facilitate restructuring that they were previously committed to. So, taking people off the furlough scheme, re-employing them under different worse terms and conditions, a hemorrhage of jobs going on. Now, we accept that there will be change in aviation in the UK. There has to be change because of the climate crisis. There also is likely to be a structural reduction in demand for air transport because of more home working, etc. Nonetheless, that change when it comes should be change that's part of a plan. So we've asked the Chancellor repeatedly, look, sit down with the industry, sit down with trade unions, work out a plan for restructuring of this industry rather than this really destructive hemorrhage of jobs that's occurring in different firms. And then, there's other parts of the UK economy that are still not even allowed to open, if we're thinking about our beauticians, for example, our gyms and so forth. Now, they do need to have continued protection through this crisis. If they don't have it, the inevitable result will be unemployment. It's about targeting those funds in the first place. And the Chancellor, we feel, has not been doing that sufficiently.
We will perhaps hear more about how the Chancellor plans to pay for all of this in the autumn. How would the Labour Party pay for all of this? Would you move more towards a wealth tax?
Well, of course, the most important thing that the Chancellor and his government need to do is to ensure growth. We're currently in a low interest rate environment. Now, I accept that may not continue forever. But for as long as we are, we really, really need to focus, and it would be an imperative anyway, to ensure that we have that growth coming through. Now, in the UK context, this is not just about the economic measures. We have big, big challenges around building up confidence because, for example, our test, track and isolate system is not yet working to the extent that it is in many other countries. Labour as a constructive opposition have repeatedly set out ways in which that system can be improved. It really needs to be improved so that we get people confident enough to be going out and consuming. It's all very well giving them incentives to do so, but if people don't have that confidence in the first place, that's a big problem. So that's what government has got to focus on now. Those suggestions that they might be introducing tax rises across the whole population, on income tax, VAT, or national insurance across the whole population in the autumn when we may still have very weak demand, that does concern me because that could knock down some of the growth in demand that we so desperately need to be growing our economy and ultimately eroding the debt. or at least the interest that would be, the accrual of the interest that would be paid on the debt.
We were called upon by the Chancellor yesterday to eat out to help out. Will you be doing that in August?
So I have been doing so since we've had the ability to go back into catering outlets. And, I know how hard it's been for so many, particularly small businesses, but, for people working in the hospitality sector in general, it's been a really, really tough period. Of course, they're still in many cases not able to operate cost effectively because of the continued requirements around social distancing. So I would say again, incentives can be a positive way of driving up demand, but really what's needed is in the UK having a much stronger handle on where the disease is. That means test, track and isolate getting sorted out.